do now is I want to take a quick walk down memory lane. If you could hit the mute all button, Yolanda.
Yeah.
I'll unmute myself. So,
Yes, there we go.
guys, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a quick little reminder about how integers work. And then what we're going to do is we're going to practice questions like this. So this is going to set us up for the rest of the lesson. So the very first question here, I'm adding two negative numbers. These are integers that, if I was finding them on the number line, we'd have 0, and then we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's -4. And if we kept going, 5, 6, 7, 8, -8. And so we're adding these two negative numbers together. Now, what we need to know is that whenever we are dealing with positive and negative numbers and adding and subtracting, we need to make sure whenever two signs next to each other, and we can simplify them using the rules that are integers. And the rule here have -4 and have a plus and a minus. That is going to simplify to one particular sign. And I want you guys to put it in the chat. What do I simplify? A negative. Oh, let's have a look. Yeah. Are you still with me? I think I've lost the chat for a second. What do you simplify a plus and a -2 if we're combining them together? I want to see in the chat. Thanks, guys. Let's keep focused on the maths for now. So if we can keep, I see the chat's getting a little bit distracted. So what I want to know is if you have a plus and a minus, and I combine those two together, what do I end up with? And I want you guys to put that in the chat, because one of the basic rules of integers is if you put a positive and a negative together, okay, I need to make sure you know this rule. So a positive and a negative interacting gives you a negative. Fantastic. And so what that means is that we have plus -8 becomes just -8. If we have 5 minus -6, we've got a double negative. Now, if we have minus, could you tell me what happens if you have minus a minus in the chat? Okay, you end up with a positive. So example 2 would just become 5 plus 6. And then example number 3, it's also a double negative. It would become plus 9. And then example number 4, because there's no two signs touching each other next to each other, you just leave it as it is. Now, this is a very important skill. However, it's only one part of the problem. What you now need to do is you need to know how to work out what -4 minus 8 is. So what we do is we think of it on the number line and we think we're at -4 and we're going to take away 8 more. And if we do this, and I want you to do it without a calculator, you should get -12. Okay, so once you've taken away any signs with two signs next to each other, you then have to use the number line to help you. In this case, 5 plus 6 will just give you 11. Now, I want you guys to tell me what is -22 plus 9. So I'll call it example C. In the chat, without your calculator, I want you to work out what is -22 plus 9. No calculators are allowed. Okay, keep those answers coming. Okay, -22 plus 9. Who else has got an answer? I see Rebetswe has an answer. Okay. Ruvarashe has an answer. Who else has an answer? Imtiaz has an answer. Okay, I like it. There's a couple of different options going on here. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is that we go to our friend, the number line. And on the number line, when we start this question, we start with -22. Okay? And if we're at -22 and we're adding 9, the direction that we're going to have to go in is actually going to be going in that direction because you're adding by 9. So this is really important. You're not going to 9. And so if we add 9, let me just get a different color here. Let me get my red. If I'm going up by 9, I go 2 units to get to minus 20, and then I go 7 more. Okay, I've kind of run out of space there. And what I'm going to end up with is minus 13. So minus 22 plus 9 is actually going to give you minus 13 as the answer. Now, if the signs are not the same, it's a negative. Yeah, exactly. I want you guys to try and do example 4 now. So I've given you minus 6 minus 10. What is the answer to that question going to be?
Let's go, guys. You guys are doing good, by the way.
Yeah, we just need to get our basics in place. This is why I really wanted to come back. Winter school is all about getting the basics from the first 2 semesters or first 2 terms kind of solid to go forward. So on my number line, I'm at minus 6, but now I'm taking away 10. And so I have to ask myself, what direction am I going in? And because I'm taking away 10, I have to go in that direction. And so I can see that you guys, for the most part, let's see those answers coming through. Okay, it's going to be minus 16. Okay, so what do we need to remember for the rest of today's lesson? Whenever we have 2 signs touching, if we have a plus and a plus, it ends up with a plus. If we have a plus and a minus, it ends up being a minus. And we can simplify to that. If we have a minus and a plus, it ends up being a minus. And if it's a minus and a minus, it's a plus. Now, we'll always use these rules in the simplification step. But then after we simplified, the simplification step that I did over here was like these ones over here. After we've simplified, we're still going to have to use the number line to help us get our final answer. Okay, so I'm going to come back to division and subtraction, division and multiplication later, but for now, I want to give you a chance to shine. So, grade 8s, there are 5 questions I would like you to try and do, and you have to simplify. For those who do get stuck, I will take questions, but for the rest of us, let's get stuck in. Over to you. And just remember, what's the first step that you need to do that deals with this first? That's the one tip I'm going to give you.
Let's do this. Remember, you're not allowed a calculator. That's the number 1 rule for this questions. No calculator.
So important. Thank you so much, Linda. We do not allow calculators because we're trying to build up the muscles in our brain that help us do this without a calculator. Because ultimately, you get faster when you can do these small calculations in your head. And so we need to build that muscle. So no calculators. Let's keep those cameras on so we're all keeping ourselves honest, that there's no temptation to use our calculators. Let's pop those cameras on. We're all in this together. It's like, you know, when you're going for a jog and you're like, someone slows down, you're like, no, guys, come, we can do this. No calculators.
Let's do this. Can we have the questions in the middle and zooming in a little bit so that Sibongo
for the middle?
Yes, Bongo
Yeah.
Is
that a bit better?
I think that's perfect. Bongo, can you see clearly? Princess, that's normal, girl. Let's do this. Let's answer the question. So you can put it on your books. You can make sure that you're writing it neatly like this. We can do corrections. And remember, anyone who has a question, you're allowed to raise your hand, and like this, Teacher Peter can help us, okay?
So what I'm really interested in knowing initially is just the plus minus thing. How do we deal with that? And for the first one, I'll give you a little hint. So -3 plus -20, we first have to deal with the plus minus when the signs are touching, basically. Okay, let's do this. You can do it. Okay, I see lots of people concentrating. That's great. Remember, no calculators for this one. We're trying to use that rule that we discussed at the beginning of the lesson, which said, if you've got two operations next to each other, there's a rule, a set of rules that you have to use. Let me use a different color. I love seeing all my students working hard. This is fantastic. So it's great seeing all you guys out there. So if you can, pop your camera on. It kind of gives us a good sense of all the students working hard. We really appreciate being able to see you and yeah, just interact with you, I guess, you know.
It's always awesome to see everyone.
Yeah, kind of makes us feel like a big family.
Yeah.
Family. I see your answer, Kanyisile. Let's keep going on this. Pop those answers in the chat when you can.
In the chat, we already have question 5. Wow, you guys are on fire.
Let's see, what can you get for 3, 4, and 5? I see lots of good answers coming through for. Would anybody like to help us with the answers for 3, 4, 5? Just pop your hand up and maybe you can help us out. Or maybe if you've got a question, I'd love, if a student is getting a bit confused, I would love to hear a question from you guys. The main thing I want my students to know is that when I start with a number like -5 and I take away 6, I have to go left on the number line. I'm just getting that idea into the heads is really important. Who would like to help me with number 4 and 5? I'd love to hear from a student.
Yeah, because explaining it, maybe it will have a sort of a good idea whether you understand how to do it or not. So who is there? Let's go, my people. I believe in you.
So question 4 is -5. And the last one, anybody want to give us the answer for the last one? It's a little bit trickier. So plus -12 must become -12. But now I have to be careful with my number line. Oh, you guys are getting this. You don't know, is that what you're seeing too? The chat, it looks like everyone is fairly comfortable.
Yeah, everyone got it. Guys, I hope you are marking because now we have the corrections. Even when you get it right, please do mark yourself correctly. This is
okay. Let's take a screenshot now if you need to. I'm going to give you a second set of 5 I'm going to go a little bit harder. Okay, so I want you to do those next 5, and I'm going to give you just 2 minutes. So you've got 2 minutes to do the next 5, and then pop your answers in the chat. Because I feel like the students have, that muscle is somewhat developed. We're going to speed it up a little bit.
Let's go, guys. I see you, Tono. I see you.
I have no muscle on my arms, but that's why you have to train, MTS. That's why you have to train. What I like doing is I just go through and write the simple version first, and then I get my answer. Because that way my brain doesn't have to deal with so many pluses and minuses and all that stuff.
You guys are doing really, really good. Let's go.
Kanisa, let's go to you. Can you unmute? Kanisa, I'll unmute you now.
Hi, sir.
How's it going?
Hi, my name is Bupilo.
Okay.
I'm getting you, sir.
Oh, very good. Have you got a question, or do you want to help me with an answer?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I see that in number 7 there's a negative and then there's a positive.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that change it to sort of make both of the numbers into negative so that our answer is a negative? Or is it based on the sign in front of it that plus there?
It's a very good question. When you have 2 positives together, the end result is a positive. It's only when there's 2 negatives together that you get the opposite way around. Does that make sense? Like 2 negatives next to each other touching give a positive, but 2 positives stay positive. So there's a difference between the rule.
Yes, sir.
So basically, in summary, 2 positives end up being a positive. That's why this over here becomes a positive there.
Okay.
So, but now what happens is the next step is a bit tricky because it's minus 10 plus 18. So now we're back on the number line. So we're stuck at minus 10 and we're adding 18. Where do you think I end up with for number 7?
8.
Yes. Can you see that? Like almost you have to gobble up the first 10 for the negatives, and then you've got 8 left to get you to the 8.
Okay.
And while I've got you, can you, if you've got a positive and a negative, do you remember what happens there?
Yes, sir.
What's going to happen?
A positive and a negative equals a negative, sir.
Perfect. And so that
Well
one.
done, Kanisa. Well done.
Thanks, Kanisa. I'm going to hand it back to the class, but thank you so much. Okay, so we've had our 2 minutes. I'm just going to show you number 9 and number 10. So minus 18 plus minus is a minus. And then minus 18 take away 2 is minus 20. And then what do we get for 10? So for 10, we're going to get 0 because minus 14 on the number line. And then you go up 14, you get to 0. Give us a thumbs up if things are going well for you. Give us a thumbs down if things are not going so well. Because I'm going to speed up a little bit if most people are comfortable. And then take a screenshot if you need to. Okay, next set of 5. This time though, in fact, let's do these 4. So I'm going to give you a minute to do these 4 questions, just 1 minute. And then while that you're doing it, I'm going to answer the question from Sebogong Kuchle. Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, sir. I'm going back to number 9.
Yeah.
Number 9 from the previous.
Number 9, let me just.
You got minus 20.
I got minus 20, yeah.
Yes, how did you get minus 20? So I got positive 16.
Okay, so if you're on the number line at minus 18 and you take away 2, so think of it like this. You start at minus 18 and you're taking away 2. Do you agree that you have to go to the left on the number line if you take away 2 from minus 18?
Yes, sir.
So I go to minus 19 and then minus 20. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I can see it on your face. I'm so happy I could help you out there. All right, let's try and do 1, 2, 3, 4. Caravaggio, do you want to unmute?
Hello, sir.
Hi, how's it going?
Fine, thanks, and you?
Very good, very good.
Yeah, well, I just got in here and I raised my hand because of that question that the other girl before me.
Oh, perfect. So you understand now what was going on, though?
Yes, I understand, sir.
Fantastic, fantastic. Cool.
Well done.
So basically what I'm seeing so far today is there's 2 main steps. The one is sometimes we have to simplify, and then the other one is when we look at the number line. So for number 2, I don't have 2 signs touching. So really, I think number line, where is negative 10? And now I'm taking away 10 more, and that means I'm going to get to negative 20. But question 3 is a bit tougher because I've got 2 negatives touching. So 2 negatives is the same as 8 plus 7. And then good news is because it's 8 plus 7, we're kind of back to, kind of grade 6, I guess, in terms of adding. So we get 15. And then what do we get for number 4? So we're at negative 7 and we take away 6. We should get negative 13. Okay. So I see there was some discussion. Yeah, in this case, because these 2 negatives are next to each other, you could think of it as multiplication, but in that case, it'd be minus 1 times minus 7. It still ends up with plus 7. But we'll get to multiplication in a moment. Let's just do these last 3. Try and do these next 3. Well done, guys. That was awesome. You're doing so well. That's why I'm speeding up, because I can feel that you've got this. So what's 5, 6, and 7? So I see lots of people are happy that this is 18. But number 6 and 7 is well, 7 is not too bad. But what about number 6? So when we have minus a minus, we need to do a simplification step where we go minus 8 plus 4. And now we have to think of our number line. So where are we going to end up? We're at minus 8 and we're going to add 4. And that is going to end us up with minus 4. Okay, so think about it. If you're going 4 units, you're going to get to minus 4 on your number line. And then what's number 7? I think I see it in the chat. I see it from Hono. It's going to be 10. Okay, so what have we done today so far? We've done plus and we started to get, now what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little break just to kind of stretch it out. And then when we come back, we are going to do multiplication and division. So I want to see everybody standing. I want to see you doing your best stretch while I stretch it out as well. And then we're going to do a little brain break. But for the moment, stand on up.
Let's go, guys. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
MTRs, I see
Let's
you.
stretch it out.
I see you, MTRs. I see
I want to
you.
see some effort. There we go. Let's do it. We've been doing maths for half an hour now, guys. Your brains need a break. We need some. Your brain needs some TLC. It needs some tender loving care. You've got to take care of your brain because. Let's do it.
Girl stretch. Let's see you.
I want to see who's stretching the best today.
Sibongo Kuhle has it on the money.
MTR is doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's brain break is from one of my favorite TV shows. I don't know if you can see it. And what we're going to do is we are going to ask you guys to try and get the final answer. And then the first person who gets the right final answer, because I know what the answer is, if you put it in the chat, I'm going to ask you to explain it to us. Okay. So let the brain break begin. And then the first person to get the right answer, when I see it in the chat, they can explain how they got the right answer. Okay, but I want the final right answer in the chat. So I want this question mark here. Okay, over to you
guys. Let's do this.
So this is from Scooby-Doo, the cartoon, another one of my childhood favorites. And I believe it's still on TV. It should be. It's a classic. It doesn't age.
Let's go, guys. Let's go to the final answer. Let's see.
You can take us through the process. So there's people have figured out the mystery machine, and some people have figured out zombies, but I want to see a final answer.
You got this, guys. You got this. So we want the final answer.
Yeah, we want the question mark.
So put things together and do what you can do and get the answer. Let's go. MTRs, I see you. You're focusing. Let's get this question.
Come on, MTRs, you can do it. You can do it. Use the clues. Who's got the, so in the chat, there's definitely been agreement that this is 8, but I still haven't seen the final answer.
Yeah, me neither. Guys, let's go. Maybe we've been spoon feeding you all this time.
What's the, also, you know what it is? You need to know your times tables for this one.
Yeah.
So people are saying the zombie is 9. I will tell you the zombie is, but now I should be getting soon. So who's gonna help me get to the final answer? Because let's have a look.
Let's girl. Let's go. I see your thing. Maybe you have an answer there.
Let's do it.
Sbongugute, is that an answer? I see your hands. You're raising your hand, girl. So you must put your answer in the chat.
Put your answer in the chat, yeah. So Minnie, I agree. Scooby-Doo is 5, but I still want the final answer. What's the final answer going to be? So Scooby-Doo is indeed 5. Okay. So, Yolanda, I'm not going to do the voice call on today, but in the next time we'll do it, because I see the first person I see is Rebetswe, who got 77, and I see lots of Taylor has got 77.
Well
Minnie's got
done,
77.
guys. You made it.
Okay. So that was fantastic. We did get to the answer. In the next lesson, what we're going to try and do is we'll try and get to the final answer. And then if we see it, we'll let the person who got it explain how they got there. But I see lots of students have got 77 now.
Well done, guys.
Fantastic. Let's get back to what we were doing at the beginning of the lesson. So in the second part of the lesson, I'm going to focus on multiplication and division. And the good news is the rules are pretty much the same. So if you have a negative multiplied by a positive, you get a negative. If you have a negative multiplied by a negative, you get a positive, and so on. So I'm just going to do these examples for you. And then after we've done the examples, you are going to practice. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Minus 20 divided by 4 is a negative divided by a positive. And so I know my final answer will be negative. What is 20 divided by 4? It's just going to be 5. And so example 1's answer is negative 5. Notice though how I used the negative divided by a positive to help me get this negative part. Okay, what about the second example? Well, this one, we've got a negative times a negative. And because of that, what we end up with is we end up with a positive. So the negative times the negative is a positive. And so 6 times 9 would be positive 54. Now, I thought I saw some hands going up, so I'm going to unmute Pumzile. If you can just come online and ask your question.
Afternoon, sir.
How's it going?
Yes, I'm good, and you?
Oh, very good.
I just wanted to ask that I've only started now. You just said that negative and positive will give a negative, and a negative and a negative will give a positive.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what kind of sign you're using, multiplication, division, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as it...
Yes. So as long as you're applying the rules. So think about this. When we were dealing with positives and negatives, okay, we had those rules. Those same rules apply, except it's slightly different now because the multiplication sign separates these two negatives. So if I look at this, I've got negative 6, the number, and it's a negative, and it's being multiplied by a negative. So the multiplication is allowing the two negatives to interact. But when two negatives combine, we still end up with a positive. So let me show you on this one, on this next one. Can you see I've got negative 3 times negative 2? What do you think that's going to end up being? Are you still with me? Okay, so negative 3 times negative 2, two negatives is going to give a positive, and then I get positive 6. But I'm not finished my question. So a positive here times a negative here means the final answer here is going to be negative, and then 6 times 5 gives you negative 30. Now, some people will say, if you've got a multiplication and you've got an uneven number of negatives, you know that you always end up with a negative. So because there's 3 negatives being multiplied, I knew I would end up with a negative. If there were 4 negatives being multiplied, I'd end up with a positive. Okay, then the last example, negative 88 divided by negative 4. If you've got 2 negatives being divided, you end up with a positive. What's 88 over 4? It's 22. So this is just an example of how we can use the same rules, but what's changed, guys, and there is a difference. We're now dealing with multiplying and dividing. And so I just want to make sure that you see there is a subtle difference because they're not right next to each other. We're not doing that little intermediate step. well, so much as we are, but we're looking straight at the question. So let's go to an example for you guys. I want you to try and do the first one for me, the first two. So tell me what the answer is for number 1 and 2. And the question is to simplify these expressions. There is no calculator allowed, and you are doing a multiplication now. So I want to see in the chat, what is the answer for number 1 and 2? So you've got a negative number being multiplied by another negative number. So remember, yeah, a negative times a negative ends up being a positive. And so it's often helpful to just do your signs first. It's going to be +6. Okay, let's do 3 as well. Do number 2 and 3 for me. Well done, Sivanati. You've realized there's a positive in front of a 1. If they don't say anything, it's automatically positive. So there's a little positive hiding there. So what do we get for 2 and 3? So for number 2, -4 times +1, it ends up being negative. And you get 4. And then for 3, you've got +6 times -10, which is negative, and 6 times 10 is 60. Okay, so it's really important, guys, no calculators here. You're just using the logic. Okay, now I want you to do 4 and 5 for me. What's the answer for 4 and 5? Nice, Fukile. Nice, Sivanati. I think you, yeah. So again, we're looking at a negative times a negative ends up positive. And then what's 3 times 7? It's going to be 21. Okay, the last one's a bit tricky. You're going to have to work that out. Give me the answer. So what I notice is there's 4 numbers being multiplied and they're all negative. And that's going to mean that almost the first 2 knock each other out, the second 2 knock each other out, and I'm going to end up with a positive. And then I go 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12. Yeah, Caravaggio, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Sir.
Yeah.
Why is it a times?
Okay, good question. A very good question. Whenever brackets are right next to each other, it means that the relationship is multiply. So in all the previous questions, that's such a good question that you asked. It was almost like the multiplication was explicitly written. But whenever things are next to each other, it means that they're multiply. And so in this case, it means that they were being multiplied together. Okay. Does that help?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's do the next 5. Getting a little bit harder now. Imtiaz, let's keep the chats strictly mathematical, please.
Let's go, guys. Let's go. We can do this one. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Quite in a bit interesting questions, guys. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm turning up the heat.
It's your time. Yeah. Anyone who has a question, it's your time now to ask. You can raise your hand while other students are putting answers on the chat. Let's do this.
Yep. I'll give you a little tip. This is a negative, this is a positive, this is a negative. And they're all being multiplied. And when you have a positive and a negative, you get a negative. But then when another negative comes along, it ends up being positive. So be careful with number 6, guys. Be careful. Because there's 3 parts to it. So I'll even put it above. This part over here is negative 30. And this part over here is negative 3. So then you have to ask yourself, what do you end up with? So negative 30 times negative 3 is going to be plus 90. Okay, so think about it. Do it in pieces. I see a lot of students were missing that. So negative 6 times 5, or negative 6 times positive 5 is this bit. And then you've just got to still go negative 30 times negative 3, which gives you the plus 90. Were there no questions about that? Anyone? Because now, like Yolanda was saying, now's a great time to ask your questions. Luyanda, yeah, let's go to you. What's your question, Luyanda?
So how is negative 6 times positive 5 negative 30?
Okay, so if I did that, Luyanda, would you agree that there's a positive in front of the 5? And when the negative and the positive interact, earlier in the lesson, do you remember we said a negative and a positive give you a negative?
Oh, now I remember.
You remember? And so now the problem with this one is that there's a second multiplication where the negative 30 and the negative 3 get multiplied.